Welcome to this week's show. This week I've got the tale of a most unlikely hero, another obscure and yet admirable figure from the pages of history. Plus, we've got a few more jobs, first jobs of celebrities, and of course, last but not least, this week's painting. So, who am I talking about? Well, I'm not talking about Franklin D. Roosevelt. You might have thought I was thinking about him, because he, of course, suffered for most of the duration of his 3 terms as presidency from polio. In fact, that's why you'll see him. Usually he was sitting down, wasn't he? And sometimes he was propped up to speak by braces, and he was supposedly in excruciating pain during some of those speeches. But no, it's not Franklin Roosevelt at all. Someone from further back in history who was even more unlikely to get as far as he did, because he suffered from leprosy. Severe leprosy, in fact, that to the point whereby his face was covered in ulcers and so forth, and he had very little use of his limbs. I think his right arm, he didn't have use of his right hand at all, because it had been totally incapacitated through the disease, and he was blinded by the disease. So he had severe leprosy, and of course back then there was no cure for leprosy. Who am I talking about? The one and only, of course, King Baldwin IV of Jerusalem, who you may or may not know of. And how on earth did someone with severe leprosy become king? Well, the tale goes back to the First Crusade. The First Crusade was led by a Frenchman called Godfrey of Bouillon, Duke of Lorraine, who then became the first king of Jerusalem after the capture of Jerusalem in 1099. Now, under this king Godfrey, the Frankish Catholics, that's Catholics, a lot of people that moved there from France, lived in general harmony with the Muslims and the Jews, and they kind of had things arranged so that whoever could, whatever particular religion, could visit their sites of worship at certain times and so forth, and everything worked out fairly hunky-dory. Then in 1174, at the age of 13, King Baldwin IV came to power in the Kingdom of Jerusalem. He had had leprosy, it would seem, since around the age of 9. That's when he first showed the first signs of leprosy, which he probably caught from a wet nurse or a servant or something, because it was generally confined to the people of lower status at that time. So how on earth did he become king? Well, he was known, even though he only had use of his left arm, and his right arm he had pretty much, it was just pretty much a stump. He was an extremely skillful horseman, and he of course showed this skill in the Battle of Jasad, when he defeated Saladin, the Muslim leader, in the Battle of Jasad. He showed extreme courage in rallying his men in that particular battle. At the age of, that was at the age of 16. In late 1184, King Baldwin handed over the reins to the Kingdom of Jerusalem to his nephew, because the disease had progressed too far and pretty much totally incapacitated him. So he lived on, however, in the memories of people who lived in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, for they had great admiration for him, both as a leader and as a commander who had led them to a fantastic victory at the Battle of Jesad. And I think it's worthy to note that this man, who had been rendered almost, shall we say, helpless, decided that in fact he wasn't going to see it in such a way at all, and rose to the rank of king of an entire kingdom in a very courageous way. And I think it's a very admirable feat, if you like. So there you go, there's a tale of admiration, if you like. I think it's admirable. Well, do you admire this painting? This is this week's painting. I have no name for it all. I'm just thinking out loud, bubblegum or something, because it looks a bit like that, doesn't it? Something like that. Blimey. And what else? Oh yeah, blimey, I almost forgot. A few more first jobs of celebrities. They can be interesting. Alexander Fleming was a shipping clerk. Pope John Paul II was a quarry worker. Tchaikovsky was an office clerk. Gauguin was a stockbroker's agent. And his good friend Van Gogh was a school teacher. Charles Dickens was a shoe polish factory worker, and Mark Twain was an apprentice printer. Well, there you go, there's another show, some more interesting things for you to think about, something hopefully you didn't know about, maybe you did. A new painting, and me. Thanks a lot for joining me this week, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye.